Chapter 8's problem-solving think pieces are about selecting the right visual aid in order to document information. So really we're talking about like what kind of chart, graph, table, whatever, should we pick in order to give this information in a visual way. I don't think that I 100% know every type of chart, graph, table that exists out there. I think this is actually a very mathematical based question that I don't have all of the answers to, so I'm answering in a way that would make the most sense to me. And I would encourage you, if you haven't already thought about what you would say for each of these 4 scenarios on page 181, then I would just pause this right now and go think about them. When I first looked at the information, I was instantly overwhelmed and I thought, like, I'm not even going to do this. We're going to do something else. But I think that it is actually really helpful to consider that there are different ways we can convey information, and there might be one that's more effective. With all that being said, this is just a disclaimer that I actually could be super wrong about these things. And if you're thinking of something else and something different, and what I'm saying here doesn't make sense, send me an email, because I would love to hash it out and figure out, like, maybe you've got the right answer and your explanation makes way more sense. So just my 2 cents there. So first, the very first one is on Angel Guerrero. I think we talked about him before. He's a computer information systems technologist who was like out of town at one point in our think piece. He is doing inventory, so he just needs to like write up a visual inventory of the technical assets that they have. I think that a table is going to be the best option here, because a bar graph, a pie chart, those things I don't think are going to work. A graph usually shows a comparison. He's not really comparing anything here. He's not showing a trend over time. He's not showing parts of a whole either. He's just presenting information in a very easy to read way, and I think that a table is going to work best for that. There's an example on page 165 at the very bottom of that page that I think is kind of like what I'm thinking as a table for just showing inventory, something very Excel spreadsheet style. Okay, so for the second option, we have a marketing department for an amusement park, and they are doing a comparison. They're basically comparing their pricing structure and attendance at the park to a competitor's pricing structure and attendance at a park. For this, I would use a comparison bar graph. I don't even know if that's what it's called, but you can find an example on page 160. And basically what it does is it shows and usually color is involved to show the difference between the 2 parks. So maybe Park A would be color-coded green and Park B would be color-coded, what's the opposite of green? Red. Maybe not red, maybe orange. I don't know. Whatever, some other color. So you would have under every single category 2 bar lines, 2 bars, I guess, where one bar would show what Park A's price on admission is, and the other bar right next to it would show what Park B's price on admission is. And then essentially what this visual information would give to the reader is an understanding of, like, oh, if all of the prices for Park A are much higher than Park B, but Park A has a higher attendance than Park B, then maybe it's okay for Park B to raise their prices. Vice versa, if all of the prices for Park B are higher than Park A and Park B has much lower attendance, then maybe Park B needs to decrease their prices. So you're going to get a nice visual spread. And again, there's an example on page 160 of what that would look like. I think that that's going to be the best way to represent that information visually. This one I think was the most confusing for me because I'm not exactly sure, but essentially for the third scenario, we are looking at our HR manager for the frozen Cajun food. We've heard of all of these people before, and she needs to show non-discriminatory hiring practices. And so what I've decided is that I think she could either do this in a table or a bar graph. What she's collected is the average age of people who are hired every year. I'm not really sure she has enough information to prove that she's not discriminating, but if we're talking about averages, then I think a bar chart is going to show the average pretty well. And we're kind of looking for like something like a flat line. All of those every year, the average age doesn't really change that much. But then maybe also a table would be able to give us extra information, because if we're talking about averages, we also have to consider, well, like how many people were hired that year. If you have an average of 52 people, but you hired, or if you have an average of age 52, but you hired 3 people that year, I'm not really sure how much information that tells us in just a bar graph. But if we have a table where we can collect other information, like the total number of hires, I think that that's going to be a little bit more helpful for her to prove that she's not being discriminatory in terms of age. This is the one I really wasn't sure on, you guys. The most I didn't really know. So I would have loved to know what you guys think about that. Okay, so for our last one, we have the International Students Club. They're collecting data on where their members are from originally. And for me, I think a pie chart would work best here, because it looks like they just want to show like they're all part of a whole. So, like 5% of students are from here, 17% of students are from here, 45% from here, and I think a pie chart would collect that information nicely, and there could be a subsequent table. A table would probably be fine, but a pie chart I think adds a nice visual element that a table doesn't have. So just my thoughts, you guys. Again, not an expert on charting. So if you have any ideas that are different from these, please send me an email. We could talk more about it.